Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, a unique way that some people experience the world. It's a kind of perception that can feel like a superpower one minute and a huge burden the next. We're going to be exploring what it means to be a conscious foreseer, drawing from the incredible work of Kaya Salih.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever had that feeling like you're picking up on something just under the surface? You see a pattern taking shape, or you just know how something is going to play out, even though nobody else sees it yet? If that sounds familiar, then you're in exactly the right place.
All right, let's start by digging into what this actually feels like, this experience of seeing things that other people just don't, and why it can sometimes feel so isolating. This quote, man, it just nails it. It's not some fleeting thought you can just brush off. It's a real shift in how you see everything. Once you've seen that underlying pattern, there's just no going back. You can't unsee it. And we need to be super clear about this. This is not about having psychic powers or telling fortunes. Not at all. It's about a deep, intuitive knack for recognizing patterns as they're forming right now in the present. It's about sensing the currents that are shaping what's to come. So, who are these people? You know, the ones who experience the world this way most often. Well, in this next part, we're going to give this way of seeing a name and get to know the group that's most familiar with it.
They're often called deep intuitives. These are folks who naturally look inward to figure things out. They're able to tap into an awareness of something before it's even a solid thing, you know? They work with these inner images, visions, and gut feelings that a lot of people might just ignore.
Now, if you're into Jungian psychology, this might ring a bell. The personality types we're talking about here are typically the INFJs, INTJs, INFPs, and INTPs. The thing that ties them all together is a powerful mental process called introverted intuition. Think of it like a background app that's always running, constantly connecting the dots and seeing the big picture, the real why behind everything. So yeah, if you're one of these types, this whole experience probably sounds incredibly familiar. And this right here, this is a huge piece of the puzzle for why it can feel so lonely. These four types, together, they make up less than 10% of the entire population. When you're in that small of a minority, it kind of makes sense why your way of seeing the world isn't always going to be understood or even believed.
But it's so important to remember, this isn't about putting people into neat little boxes. A much better way to think about it is like this, a map of consciousness. The point isn't to just find a label and stick it on. It's about understanding the unique engine that drives your own development and awareness.
But here's the thing. This unique gift often comes with a really unique challenge, something the source material calls the Foreseer's wound. So let's talk about the pain that can come from seeing what others just don't.
At its core, the suffering comes from this gap, the space between what you perceive deep down in your bones and what you can actually communicate to someone else. You see the whole pattern, but the words to explain it, they just don't exist yet.
Okay, so let's break this down. It starts with sensing those deep, invisible patterns. The result? The pain of not being able to share what you know, which naturally leads to feeling isolated. And what's missing is that validation, that mirroring from others who get it. And the consequence of all that? The intuitive person ends up feeling totally alone and often gets blamed for just being different.
And this is where that wound gets even deeper. Because instead of trying to understand, the world often tells deep intuitives to just change. Be less intense. Don't overthink it. Just fit in. That pressure just hammers home that awful feeling of being completely and fundamentally unseen.
But, and this is a big but, it's not all doom and gloom. There is absolutely a path forward. So now let's shift from the wound to the healing journey. It's a process of integration and, honestly, profound self-acceptance.
The goal here isn't to fix this way of seeing things, because there's nothing broken to begin with. It's about integrating it. The famous psychologist Carl Jung had a name for this, individuation. It's really just the journey of becoming more fully who you already are. And for deep intuitives, this journey is everything.
I absolutely love this quote because it's such a game changer. Figuring out your type, knowing you're an INFJ or an INTP, that's not the finish line. It's the key that unlocks the door. It's the start of a much deeper, much richer process of self-discovery.
And it's so important to remember that the struggle, that feeling of being unseen, it isn't a sign that you're defective. As Jung himself said, you can't really become more conscious without some pain. But this isn't bad pain. This is growing pain. It's the friction that creates transformation.
All right, for our final section, let's zoom all the way out. Let's reframe this entire experience and look at how the very personal journey of a deep intuitive actually serves a vital role for all of us.
Because when a deep intuitive goes through that journey of integration and fully embraces who they are, wow, they become these incredibly powerful forces for good. They see the invisible structures that run our world. They're comfortable sitting with uncertainty. They're stable and incredibly hard to manipulate. They just know when to move and when to be still. And because of all that, they're the ones who can build better, more humane, and more sustainable systems for everyone.
So you see, they're not just visionaries in the classic sense. They're inner world change makers. By navigating their own complex inner landscape, they become masters of that transformative process we all know as the hero's journey. They don't just see change coming, they become the living embodiment of it. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What if this ability to foresee isn't just a random personal trait, but a collective human capacity that just happens to be concentrated in a few people? And if that's true, what is our shared future trying to show us right now through them? It's a pretty powerful thought to end on.